Welcome into another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sidelines.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No f***ing way is that a gimme, right?
Here we go, baby. It is it's always a split squad edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. We are normally emanating from two different places. A couple weeks ago, I know I went to Vegas and we worked around that, but Dirty Boxing has moved out of Miami. They are headed to Nashville, Tennessee tomorrow night, where my man Jason Anik is going to be a part of that big broadcast of Dirty Boxing 4. And bro, just quickly for the brand, fourth fight, and you're already moving out of the confines of Miami and taking it on the road. It's pretty dope.
That's the rub, Gresh. That really is the rub. And when I talked to some of the brass early on, I think that maybe they weren't necessarily quite ready to move Dirty Boxing out of the friendly confines of the hangar in Miami. But I think to a certain extent, we've sort of outgrown it a little bit, right? I think bigger and better things. And ultimately, they're doing a lot of things with Dirty Boxing, really trying to model themselves like the UFC, creating a big show, treating the fighters the right way. Everything's professional, and they're really starting to grow. So I'm excited. Nashville, pretty much a building where I think the capacity is 4,500 with standing room. I think maybe there could be between 2,000 and 3,000 people in there, which give me all of that, bro.
No question. I mean, if you're doing fourth event out and you're drawing a couple of grand in terms of people, that is pretty good. I know that I know the guy in the main event has done a lot in a short amount of time. He was an NCAA heavyweight wrestling champion. Then he signed with WWE. Then he left WWE and ended up said he was going to get into the world of mixed martial arts. Now, I know there's Real American Freestyle out there, and that's pure wrestling, which is right up Gable Stevenson's alley. But he is in the main event of Dirty Boxing, a guy who has taken quite a route to where he is in the main event tomorrow night.
Well, yeah, and the irony, because this little bit of a football show, was actually in camp with the Buffalo Bills.
That's right. I forgot about that.
You know, and it's interesting, right? Like, Gresh, my brother has taught me how to prepare for these fights, these fighter cards, right? Gable Stevenson, I don't got enough room for the accolades of this guy. I could go on and on. I mean, the athlete, right? The fact that he's trying all these different things, right? The fact that he's entering a Dirty Boxing ring where he can't wrestle, right? He just made his MMA debut in LFA, which was completely dominant. Hands looked great, but he finished the fight with ground and pound on the ground. Dirty Boxing, it's elbows, it's punches, it's spinning shit, but it's all on the feet. You can ground a pound to the finish, but you got to be standing up. But I'll tell you, man, like, this guy is so genuinely humble. He absolutely wants to be a star. I think he wants his next fight to be in the octagon, but I think takes quite balls for him to get in this arena. And his opponent, interestingly enough, Gresh, has a lot of experience in MMA and in striking. But what's interesting about this guy, right, is that his name's Billy Swanson, Big Sexy, they call him. And he was pretty honest with us about sort of not always being in the proper cardiovascular condition, feeling like he sort of showed up in a lot of fights out of shape. He's very heavy into his faith. And so he actually, before he ever got this opportunity, had sort of made a renewed commitment to being in shape when he doesn't have a fight on the book. So he did a hard 6 weeks before he got the call for Gable. So he's done a 10-week camp. Look, I think Gable's going to be a problem, but this guy, Billy Swanson, telling you he is not a can. And I'm telling you, Gresh, when he's doing his pictures with his shirt off, he doesn't look like the fighter in any way that I've seen in the ring. So it'll be interesting to see if the physical transformation can give him a shot against Gable.
Well, yeah, not only the stamina end, but in terms of carrying the weight, losing the weight, and keeping the power. That's really where a lot of guys struggle sometimes, is you lose some of your oomph when you lose some of your weight. So the main event will be interesting, and we are coming off of a man, you know, you hate to say disappointing UFC 321, but when the main event, and you and I talked about it last week, we're all waiting for Tom Aspinall to get back in the ring, and he gets two knuckles shoved into his eye, and his dad said yesterday that he still can't see. It just was deflating for the heavyweight championship fight to basically be a no contest because of an eye poke, and apparently Aspinall still hasn't come out of it yet. I'm curious for your thoughts on that, because there were some good fights on the 321 card, but it's hard not to feel let down because everybody loves the heavyweights. When the heavyweight division is good, it's great. It's great for really MMA and boxing as a whole when the heavyweights are healthy. But where did you land on the 321 main event?
The name that I can't get out of my head is Ciryl fucking Gane, because that really is the story to me in a lot of ways. The eye poke is what it is. I think we're going to see these guys run it back. And I know we'll talk a little bit about the eye poke, but we talked about this fight last week, Gresh, before it happened. And I think we were both talking about Gane's athleticism. And I think I said, just get on a bike, for the first round, just make sure you can get through that first round. But Ciryl Gane was so clearly in the best physical shape of his life, it appeared.
He looked unbelievable. My God. Yes, looked unbelievable.
Looked in far superior shape than his opponent, dare I say, right? He looked every bit as physically opposing as Tom Aspinall did, and he got a lot more done. He looked a lot crisper. He bloodied him up. So I guess from my standpoint, I really have thought a lot about Ciryl Gane this week, right? The eye poke. There are a lot of things that I would tread lightly saying about a fighter, getting poked in the eye and saying they can't see. And even if he could, whatever he's dealing with, you really want to get back into that arena in a compromised state. Certainly it's a disappointing result. You heard Dana say, yeah, we're going to rebook it. Fuck, it sucks, or whatever he said. It's hilarious.
And that's how I feel. But you know what? But that result with the eye poke, to your point, Jay, it didn't turn me off from the fight. Like, I still want to see these two guys get after it. And every once in a while, there's I guess that fight didn't work out, and you kind of move on to someone else. No, I want them to run it back in a big spot.
Yeah, see, that's a great point. I didn't think about that, and I totally agree with you. We were all so... I don't want to say all of us, but a lot of people, it was like Ciryl Gane after the appearance versus John Jones. I think people wrote him off a little bit. And I think that a lot of people, even me to an extent, was curious where Aspinall was going to go after he got through Ciryl Gane, So I think, probably more hyped for this rematch now because of what I saw out of Ciryl Gane. I want to ask you a question about the eye poke itself, right? Because I heard one person, I think Ray Longo on the Anik and Florian podcast, made a comment, just kind of.
He had a great answer, yeah.
Right, yeah, just talking about how so is the goal for everybody to make sure that Tom Aspinall doesn't utter the words "I can't see"? Right, like, is that what we're trying to do? Wayward, if you're asking me.
Well, and DC kind of said that on the broadcast. He was like, okay, you can't say, don't say you can't see. Like, DC was kind of tipping it off to be like, okay, we're going to turn the mics up, but hopefully I don't hear this. And when Aspinall kept saying, hey, I can't see, DC on the broadcast is like, oh, shit, that ain't good, basically, to where it was, okay. And even he was like, all right, I think this thing is going to end up getting stopped, and kind of knew where it was. Yeah, like Cody just threw in the chat. Even Herzog was like, don't say that, because if it's within the earshot of a doctor, that's it. Then you have no chance, and they're gonna shut you down. I think what it is, Jay, is it's just disappointment because we waited so long to get both of these guys in the ring. And to your point about Gane, I think one of the things that I'm learning in my MMA journey as a fan, let's say, is that when these guys have like a year off, they learn so much now. Like, there's so many people for them to learn from. You need to work. In fact, I think John Jones, if I'm not mistaken, in whatever his last fight was, I think he brought in Gable Steveson to work with him in terms of mat wrestling and stuff like that. So if you have a year, that's a long layoff. Like, I know Aspinall and his dad, Andy Aspinall, had talked about how much he had grown because he was waiting and he was in camp. And I think it's the same thing for Ciryl Gane. Is you could see there was some growth there, because I was with you and I was with most of the people who were like, okay, this John Jones worked this guy. We thought Aspinall was going to compete with Jones by proxy. But you're right. He didn't put it on him in the first round, but he sure as hell let Tom Aspinall know he was there, he was live, and he was going to be a tough out.
Absolutely. So, Gresh, what would you say, to the people that would maybe say that this is a best case scenario for Tom, right? That he clearly, right? I'm not saying it. I'm saying the people
I
would
got
say,
you.
right. The best case scenario for Tom, that he was losing the round, which is fair to say, right? And now being able for this to be for those that are saying it's a best case scenario, think maybe that he would have lost the fight or was on his way to losing, and now he gets an opportunity to feel Sittlegan for 4 minutes, sort of see what he's up against, to retrain. So what would you say to those people? I saw you make that face.
Yeah, I would. I don't think so at all. I think these kinds of things end up kind of like clouding certain people's legacies, or they just become fights that are forgotten about. Oh, that was the eye poke fight. And if they run it back again and have a classic 5-rounder, then we're not going to give two shits that the first one was really disappointing over the course of history. But if it leads to 5 rounds of lackluster fighting and it overall becomes a fight that disappoints, then it's going to become a part of the legacy that unfortunately kind of sticks with them. Eye pokes, I think, are tricky, because I think there's some in the MMA world who just say, F it, you're a fighter, that's a part of the deal, suck it up and deal with it. And then there's some who are like, no, especially at that level, if you're the heavyweight champion of the world, don't put yourself at risk, even though you run the risk of some people maybe calling you a pussy. Like I hate to put it that way, but that really is the rub, I think, in the MMA world, where this next fight better be a banger, because if it's disappointing and you combine it with the eye poke, both guys, unfortunately, will have a lot of people probably unfairly judging them at the end of the day.
Great point. I don't love the conversation about the gloves. It's not my favorite conversation. People,
right.
Oh, we got to do something about, dirty boxing, they got open fingers, right? And that's really just for clinching, right? We're no grappling or wrestling. So I find it hard to believe that anything is going to motivate some big change, but I find it very difficult to blame some of these athletes for these eye pokes. You know what I mean? It's happening so fast. You're feeling your range. I know some of them are better at keeping their palms straight up without the fingers out, but you get people on these podcasts talking about that's always intentional, that these eye pokes are always intentional. I just don't see it that way, man, in combat sports.
Yeah, I don't think they're always intentional, but I do think there is some culpability on the fighter of keeping their palms straight, right? Like keeping your fingers out of someone's eyes. When you're just kind of, you're like reaching out, and that's how it happened with Aspinall. And for some guys, it happens more than once in a fight. Like that's where it gets me. Okay. Then it becomes an issue of technique and needing to kind of clean that up. But I think the sport, it's one of those gray areas in the sport, right? Where it's kind of, well, if you can't police it, evenly for everybody, then how in the world are you going to deal with it? That's how we also end up in situations like this. And I will say this, okay? Now, there have been like big knockouts where a guy gets hit with an elbow or a spinning elbow, and they always slow those down, right? Because that's the contact that we love. I've never seen the UFC production team, and I'm willing to be wrong. I've never seen the UFC production team zoom in to slow down an eye poke like that, where you could really tell that Tom Aspinall wasn't full of shit and that he really did get a pretty bad eye poke. And that's, to me, that's smart. It's protecting your champion. But I remember them like slowing them down from far distance and you could see it, but they did like the mega zoom in just on his eyes and showed that. I don't ever remember that happening before.
You very well may be right. It's like I've seen so many videos of Bilal Muhammad, my friend, being poked by Leon Edwards that I feel like I must have seen that one slow so many times, but your point's very well taken. What's kind of interesting for me, my brother told me, Aspinall kept the towel up there the whole time. You really couldn't see much after right when he's sitting around, right? Whereas Bilal was crying and you could see sort of the swelling. It was sort of there for everyone to see. So I think perhaps, look, Tom can't see out of his eye. I take him for his word. So
Agreed.
even if it doesn't look bloody and swollen, it is what it is. But I have seen a lot, and Cody says Bilal was also at an empty apex. That's a good point. But I have yet to see an image of Tom's eye post fight. Have you?
No. And I know that his dad, it was on ESPN.com yesterday, where his dad said he still can't see out of the eye. So Who knows? You know what? The pictures are there. They just aren't out yet. Like, we'll see them. I think once everything is okay with his eye, then but right now, I'm sure that there's a part of Tom Aspinall where he's got to be the crap scared out of him that he's, what are we now? Almost, we're 5 days past the fight and he still can't see out of that eye. So I can understand why we haven't seen the images just yet. I think once we hear that everything is okay, then we'll start to see the ugliness, because there's no way it looks like, you wouldn't look at him and be like, oh, that guy just ripped a bong. You know what I mean? Like, there's not that kind of red eyes. He's going to have, who knows if there's scratches or any craziness that's going to be there long term. And Jay, don't you think this has to kind of kill his training on some level at this point until the eye comes back? Like, he's kind of at a standstill from his career right now until this thing gets straightened out.
Absolutely. And gosh, man, I'm not suggesting in any way that Aspinall was looking past gone, but the fact that now your next opponent again is gone, who knows if maybe he still has aspirations to fight John Jones at the White House. Maybe that's going to become Poaton's opportunity. Who knows? But I think for Aspinall, it's got to be incredibly disappointing. But, you see a lot of fighters go through a lot of different things, right? See Anthony Smith, who could have been a champion if he accepted a foul in a fight early in his career against John Jones. So I think for Tom Aspinall, he'll emerge through this. But I will say, Gresh, the reason I went gone right out of the gate to put a bow on this a little bit is I don't think the betting line will be the same as it was before. I'm sure it's already out there. And I think Ciryl Gane has a very good chance to do the same thing he did 4 or 5 days ago.
Yeah, well, here's the other thing too. How long will it take to get these guys? I guess Tom Aspinall's eye is what will really determine how quickly these guys get back in the ring. Does this become, I'm thinking just from a timing standpoint, Jay, the month of July is normally International Fight Week. Having 2 international heavyweights as the main event kind of, makes sense to celebrate the worldwide growth of the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dana would throw up in his mouth if he thinks he's going to have to wait 10 months, or so, right? I think they. But you're right. We have no idea how quick a turn it's going to be. And also, Ciryl Gane, I don't think is a guy that, while he is married to the game, I don't think he's training out. I think he has very specific camps. So for him, the devastation I saw from him was the work that he put in. And so how he turns that page and where he's willing to go. So there it is. Hard for me not to look a little bit at that plus number, but I also think for those people that are saying best case scenario for Tom, I do believe that it is somewhat of a gift for Tom to have experienced those 4 or 5 minutes if he wants to beat Ciryl Gane when they fight again.
Yeah, and those numbers are probably where they should have been, quite honestly. Like, that is the minus 198 and the plus 164 is much more reflective of where that fight probably should have landed. Mackenzie Dern wins the strawweight title in what was a hell of a scrap, quite honestly, and it really truly came down to the third round. I thought, and I love listening to John nail these names, Janjidoba. So I learned how to say her last name. I thought that was an even fight going into the 5th round, and it's rare where you really have that feeling that, oh my God, this final round is really going to decide it. They both went into deep waters. I know Dern had been there before. I thought it was a hell of a fight, and it was the right winner in my opinion.
I agree. I wasn't scoring it live. I really believe Dern was in control. I didn't maybe think it was as close as some people did. But for Mackenzie Dern, to accomplish what she has. And certainly you don't mind Zhang Weili stepping out for you there, right? Because that's a different test. But she is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. She is a grappler. She's an ADC champion, ADCC champ, IBJF. She is a jiu-jitsu. She's from this jiu-jitsu world that I'm sort of getting into. So to see her achieve this when I remember fights a few years back where her striking was so vulnerable, so average. And it's so clear to me that she's put in the work. And I think now her frame has become a problem. I think she has some power in her hands. And Jason Perillo and that team just have to be thrilled because you talk about evolution of a fighter. Mackenzie Dern, if you had asked me a few years ago, would she become a UFC champion? I would have said, no way. And she is not the fighter she was a few years ago.
No, and I know they chronicled that, Jay, a lot during the broadcast about how most people are fighters and they find someone. This was the reverse. She was drugged into MMA and has now turned herself into a champion. I thought it was a great battle, and you're right. And I know there was the meme going around of the face off of the two men in the heavyweight fight that had about 2.6 million likes. And then there was the shot from behind of Mackenzie Dern at the weigh-ins with Genji Doba, and it did like 5.6 million. I mean, but in all seriousness, like as crazy as it sounds, this is, it's rare that the UFC has had this problem, so to speak, where, you know what I mean? Where you have someone that is an absolute smoke who is one of your champions and one of the, baddest women in your promotion, but who you can also throw in a cocktail dress and bring her to go meet executives from a network, and she would blend right in. And the dude at the network would be like, holy shit, look how hot this fighter is.
You can be sure there are plenty of fighters that they would maybe rather not become champions and certain fighters that they would love.
Mm-hmm.
And for Mackenzie Dern to be a UFC champion and all that comes with it is absolutely outstanding. And what's interesting, there have been some sort of rumblings back and forth. There it is. So Cody says her Brazilian father but she was born in America. And so what's interesting, her English, in my opinion, sounded great this week. And there's been some criticisms of her English over the past couple of years saying that she used to speak, there are videos of her back in the day speaking very good English. And then there were moments over the last couple of years where maybe, and Cody may know more about this than me, where people were like, I thought she spoke English, right? And he says, because she spent too much time in Brazil. But I talk about these stars. And so the fact that she was mixing in, she spoke a lot of English and this week to me in a way that I hadn't heard in a while. I think it's great for becoming a star.
You know what's interesting is, and learning it and thinking about it more and more, right? Like if you can go back to Kobe Bryant, right? Remember when Kobe learned Mandarin? Because that was kind of the pathway to maybe selling shoes, right? And then I know that LeBron followed suit and stuff like that. So that's when I started to think about this. And again, I know it's a whole different world, but just in terms of being worldwide, some of those WWE superstars that are bilingual, those who can speak Spanish, those who can, like if you have someone who can speak Arabic, that's huge to be able to send to all of these countries around the world now. China, big with the UFC. I know that they're, the Chinese speaking fighters are huge over there, maybe trying to learn English a little bit. I know we've seen them in the ring do it with DC. So I do think there is something to, if you're in the NFL, it doesn't matter whether you can speak another language. There's no practical application for it. Good point. You're in a worldwide brand, there is hey, I can send this person to another country and they can converse and they can tell people about the brand and they're not going to screw it up.
That's great stuff there. You and me, we get on these tangents, right? We're rolling here on MMA, and when I look at our next topic, right, and I see Boston Bruins and Celtics, Gresh, I live in South Florida, not there now. But while I was very happy for Brad Marchand to win a championship with the Panthers, and I was very emotional watching his return to Boston. But the Bruins feel so irrelevant to me, unfortunately, at this stage in a way they haven't felt in 15 years. And living in South Florida with a back-to-back champion Florida Panthers with Brad Marchand on the team, it's making me a little bit sour. The Celtics, we knew this was going to be a bumpy ride. So for me, I enjoy that bumpy ride right now. But for me, the Bruins are a very difficult watch.
Yeah, having the over last night was a pretty solid play, over 6.5. I'm just saying because the Islanders had scored. I had it the other way going 5-2.
Yeah.
Not that the Bruins were actually going to score last night. Hey, I think it's as simple as this. They mortgaged the farm a couple years ago to try to give all of us the one last dance if we steal it from Michael Jordan. And now we're paying the price as fans, as an organization. They did what we wanted. They brought back Krejci. They brought back Bergeron. They put the band back together. Rask was there for a while. So, you leverage some things to make this happen. And now this is where you kind of get bit on the backside for trying to have one of those special years.
It's a great way to put it. And I guess just to put a bow on this, right? For you used to host a lot of Boston local sports radio. So if you were still on, and obviously right now you do a lot of national stuff, you have to have a pulse on a lot of different things. But if you were still local, are you watching the entirety of every Bruins and Celtics games? I know they overlap sometimes, but
Celtics, yes, Bruins, no. And I'll tell you, here's what it is. When my youngest is home, he will put on a Celtics game and watch it from the beginning. My standard rule is I can watch the fourth quarter of an NBA game and learn everything I need to know to talk about it on the air. So sometimes I cheat it, sometimes I don't. What normally happens a lot of time, Jay, is, like even last night, my wife was like, what's on? And I was like, World Series isn't on till 8. Bruins are on at 7. She's like, any basketball? And I'm like, none that you'd want to watch. And then, boom, it's just kind of on in the background. That's what it would be. Celtics would be on in the background, and then in the fourth quarter, I would really start to hone in.
In terms of watching the fourth quarters, my younger brother, who watches every minute of the Celtics, has a new betting strategy for those of you out there. Fade the Celtics live after they get out to a big lead, because I hate to say it, it has nothing to do with the head coach. This has been a proponent of this team for a long time, for years, it feels like, where they really get out to some really good starts. And in this league, a lot of things come back to the median by that fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, it's actually a pretty now that I hear it, that's a pretty solid strategy. I would I can co-sign on that. In terms of the Celtics, we knew it was going to be a tough year. It's just going to be the way it is, quite honestly. I think there will be a chance to move Simons at some point, but I gotta be honest. I don't want to get into the negative mind space, but I dream of them being in the lottery. Like, imagine having Brown, Tatum comes back, and you have a top 3 pick. Let's say. I mean, it really makes you start to think. You draft the right guy, you now have a new core big 3 for at least 5 years because you're going to have that guy on a rookie contract.
Yeah, I'd be lying to you if when I see them get out of the gate 0-3, that a part of me isn't I was optimistic, and I still think they are going to maybe make a little bit of noise, but I hear you. Wouldn't be the worst thing if this was sort of a really bad year, just a one-off. You feel me?
No, I totally do. You're right. The one-off. We know Tatum's coming back. I just want Tatum to get back by the end of the year. Like, I want him to have about 10 games, let's say, this season, so that he can go into what would then be a normal preparatory off season for him.
Yep. I tell you, as we move on to the Patriots, when you see the way Stephon Diggs has come off that ACL injury, Gresh, right? Like, dude, it's unbelievable at his age. I know an Achilles is different than an ACL. I just have great confidence in Tatum. I do think where the team is, it'll depend on some of that. But the healing of these world-class athletes in 2025, I think, is a very sort of productive space where guys can really get to a great space sooner than maybe they had in the past.
And JT, I do believe, put out like a tweet or something like that saying 6 months. So he's keeping track. He's hitting the he's hitting the goalpost, so to speak. And I think I think we'll see that guy before the end of the year. I really do. All right, the Patriots continue to keep winning 32-13 over the Browns. I mean, the Browns are, first of all, I mean, they're one guy. You know, they were one guy for many years on offense, and it was a left tackle. And they're one guy for many years on defense, and it's a defensive end who had an unbelievable day, did Myles Garrett. But the play action game is still getting better. Patriots ran the ball. They mixed it in on the outside a little bit in the second half with a little bit of Travion Henderson thrown in there. Overall, I thought that was a really, really nice offensive performance and a good team win, Jay.
100%. I mean, it is. I don't want to say that I'm surprised, but I'm really happy. I can't even believe I have to sort of pump the brakes and sort of take a step back and start to like really follow this team as a fan the way I did, because they're doing some special things. And that hiatus of this 3-4 years of just garbage, it feels like all of us to go back to this. And after winning 4 games to be at 6-2, it's kind of crazy. I didn't expect it to happen quite this fast. I know the schedule has been weak, but Gresh, they got margin for error. They fucking blow everybody out. Myles Garrett has 5 sacks. Drake May throws the worst interception he's thrown in his whole career, and they still blow teams the fuck out because they have crazy margin for error, because they're really good in all 3 phases. Rookie kickers working out at Borregales from Miami. Tell you right now, I know we're going to get to our picks later, but it is very difficult for me not to jump through the moon about this team right now.
No, and I understand that. I'm a little more of the, here's kind of where I'm at. It's been 7 weeks where it feels like they've stacked good weeks on top of one another. But I do think some of the offensive explosion the last couple of weeks is reflective of the opponent and their lack of pushback and where some of those teams really are. Like, you go into this week against Atlanta and you look at the talent on Atlanta and you compare it to the last 3 weeks, and Atlanta wins out talent-wise. But they're Jekyll and Hyde. Like, I don't know which Atlanta, like, a part of the reason I have a hard time handicapping this Patriots game, I believe they're going to play well, but which Atlanta shows up? The one that scores 35 points or the one that gives up 35 points? You can never figure out which one it is. But with New England, there's been a level of consistency where even if they turn around and beat Atlanta, say they only win 24-23 and they kick a field goal late, I'm still going to have very positive emotions and feelings about this team. Like, I hope the lopsided scores haven't completely led people to thinking that this group is further ahead than they really are. There is still that proverbial long way to go. And we saw about the Youngs getting exposed on the left side of that offensive line.
Yes, they did. And I do think if you really crunch the numbers, it was not as bad a day for Will Campbell as it appeared on your television screen.
Oh, I would 100% agree. He had some issues where, you know, like when the tight end chips, you still shouldn't be getting beat. And that was early in the game. And I think he kind of learned from that one a little bit. Hey, here's the thing. And I think people need to let's just go back in Patriots history quickly for a second. Who gave Matt Light fits every year, Jay, that made people scream, you got to get rid of that guy? You saw him twice. No, you saw him twice every year. Excuse me. Sometimes he played on a team that was good and bad. Might have been your neighbor at one point.
Anyway,
Jason Taylor. How many years did we sit there and watch the good Patriots play Miami, and it would be, oh shit, they can't stop Jason Taylor, they need a new left tackle? And Matt Light was plenty fine to win championships with, and that is, I think Will Campbell would be a better player than Matt Light, but Matt Light, shorter arm guy, had issues with Hall of Famers. Holy shit.
Right.
Like, what are we freaking out over? Exactly. Will Campbell had an issue with a guy who's got 110 sacks on a team that sucks. That's pretty damn hard to do. So I'm not overreacting on it at all. They tried to chip. They tried to help. Other guys had issues. The guy's a Hall of Famer, for God's sakes. Like, other dudes are going to make plays as well.
100%. we're going to get to our picks in a little bit, and a little teaser here. That game may be one of my picks, but for me, as I watch this team play, and for those of you that didn't see on Patriots.com, Cody sent it to me. It's just this Josh McDaniels mic'd up, right?
Oh,
And
my kid, my oldest and his friends were watching it last night when I went to the garage at 1:30, and they were all down there watching it, and I saw that thing. That's pretty dope. He coaches like a head coach.
That's a good point. He does.
Like, to me, that was one of the things that I noticed about it. He talked to him like he was the head coach, even though I wasn't like usurping anybody.
Right. Well, it really is. That's his side of the fucking ball. He is the head man on that, right? And he better. But Stephon Diggs, I mean, him, was he asking McDaniels, hey, is there anything you want me to say to the guys in the huddle? And then McDaniels is giving him, we're not done yet. We're only like, the leadership there is important. And I'm telling you, Gresh, like, I know it's going to be a very difficult run if they make it to the postseason. There's going to be some bumps later in the season, right? It's a long road. But every week I see this team play, it makes me think a little bit more of them as a contender.
Here's the only thing that worried me about that Diggs thing. I don't want his personality. That guy's personality needs to dominate the huddle right there. It should, like, instead of Steph Diggs running over and saying, hey, what do you want me to say to them? That should be Steph Diggs going to Drake May and say this, right? Like, teach the kid how to do it. Don't be the person doing it, and let him learn through osmosis, because then Diggs' voice becomes bigger than the quarterback's.
That's a great point, and I almost don't even want to counter it because it's such a good point. But I do believe Diggs, we're not in the huddles, and I do believe he probably understands that balance pretty well. Diggs is a talker. People have told me I'm a twitchy guy. I'm a talker, right? So Diggs is always going to be running his mouth. Every chance he gets, he run over to the sideline, right? Talk to McDaniels, just bullshitting, catches his first touchdown pass. I think that everything that everyone around Drake May is doing from a leadership standpoint is clearly working in terms of building him up as a leader. He's got that juice, man. He's got that swagger. You saw him give Vrabel the game ball. I'm impressed, man. Blown away.
Yeah, I mean,
really.
Even if he isn't the greatest leader, he's playing really good football right now. And at the end of the day, that is the only thing that matters. The one thing I like that Josh McDaniels is doing is that it's little by little. It feels, I think, because of the scores, that they're doing all of this different stuff. I don't think they have really truly opened up the playbook very much just yet. We're still working on run the ball, play action stuff. We haven't seen anything out of empty, hardly. We haven't seen any runs around the goal line that have been called for Drake. We've seen none of those, really. So, they're scoring all these points and they're taking advantage of turnovers and they're hitting shots on play action, but there's still so much more to go. Like, when you think of the Tom Brady, Josh McDaniels offense, we've only seen about 20% of it or 25% of it right now. That's the, when do they really, like, when we start seeing the kid with a tight end and four wides on the field, and he's doing the whole, doing this deal, right? And the way Brady used to, then we know they're completely trusting him. He's not there yet. I think they're still in kind of like the early, like when McDaniels was here with Mac, a lot of the same stuff, close to the vest, shorter throw. Now, I know they've opened it up a little bit and be able to throw it a little deeper, but it's really off play action. And I said this on TV the other night, Jay, it's not denigrating the kid, but usually play action is ball fake, 1-2. There's two guys you're throwing it to, and then you're making a quick decision off of that. So it's not that you're dumbing it down. It's just that the kid is processing it at a high level. And if it isn't there, he's been able to run because they're in man coverage and he can skirt a linebacker. Or he knows that there's no safety over the top. Shit, throw it to the back end line and see if somebody can run up underneath of it. He's making smart plays off of it, but we haven't seen any of the stuff in empty or goal line runs with the kid yet.
Very interesting. Speaking of safety, I know we weren't surprised to see Kyle Duggar moved, a couple moves out of the Patriots, moved Keon White as well, a couple 6-round picks coming back. Cody, I think some big move is coming. Certainly there were some pieces, even though some skilled players that just didn't fit in Vrabel's system. Is it as simple as that with these two guys?
Yeah, I think it is. And I'm a big fan of Keon White. There's like deep down, there's an asshole there of a defensive lineman. And I think the 49ers might have gotten a steal. Saleh will know, I think, how to use that guy. And yeah, at safety, there's no question. Peppers didn't fit and Duggar didn't fit. And it was really just a matter of time. So I think for Pittsburgh, they're taking a chance on a guy who's a box safety, half linebacker that they kind of need to help them stop the run. They're just putrid against the run down in Pittsburgh right now. And that's one thing that Duggar can do.
In terms of, great point. In terms of like the idea of them sort of looking to add something in free agency, right? I'm not so sure that this move was done specifically for that. Keon White, right? I was a little surprised to hear you say what you said because I agree with it. So is it that other guys are just sort of stepping up and Vrabel maybe, like, what do you think we see that maybe Vrabel was willing to move off from?
Yeah, I think it might be a consistency thing. You know, K'Lavon Chaisson has really come on as well. You know, that's another thing is that they've had a player emerge at that spot. So maybe they know they're going to keep him and might have to invest some resources there. You know, I also think there is if you haven't completely proven yourself by now and you maybe don't completely fit in the scheme, that, you know, and you're a Belichick guy, will kind of move on from you a little bit. You know, there aren't many of those kind of draft picks left on the roster, and I don't think it's a big deciding factor. But when it's not your investment, it's easier to move off of them. And if you look at it, 2024, the Mayo year, all those guys that got extensions, you could look at or most of them, right? Peppers, Godshaw, like he got traded. You know, those guys that got extended in 2024, the Vrabel crew has really come in and looked at those guys very differently than little Elliott did the year before.
Yeah, and Vrabel's certainly not just getting rid of guys because they're a Belichick guy, right? Christian Barmore, who they signed to an extension before Vrabel
No, they kept him, yeah.
He loves him. Final thing before we move on to our picks. I feel as though we started this show probably almost a year ago. I feel as though ever since last season ended and the season win total for the Patriots came out, was it 7.5 or 8? Was it 8.5?
It was 8.5. Yeah.
8.5. So you talked to me about liking the Patriots over 8.5 wins, literally like every week for months. So I guess I'm a little regretful. It's hard for me to go to the window and drop thousands of dollars to wait a whole football season to get my money back. But I guess what I'll say to you is you were so bullish on that. Are there any tickets floating around for you on the Patriots season win total over?
I have one at $250.
Okay, good.
So over. Yeah, I played it.
Good.
I actually
bullish on that.
Honestly, I actually found one at 7.5. And that was the one I jumped in on. Yeah. That was the one that I jumped in on. So I'm 2 away from, cashing a couple $100. But yeah, and I'll say this, you go back and you look at that Pittsburgh game where you had all those turnovers and it's tied to 14 in the fourth quarter, and you're thinking, damn it, you get that one. That's another AFC win, and you're 7-1. You were realistically that close to being 7-1. And now they got the mojo. I mean, they really do. When you think about sort of New England and where they hang on here. Let me just pull up all right. So it's against Atlanta and then at Tampa. That might be tough. Baker's having an MVP type season.
Might be tough for Tampa too. Go ahead.
No, true. But short week Jets. I hate short weeks. But then they get 10 days to prepare for at Cincinnati, who now looks different because of Flacco. And then they play the Giants on December 1st. So even if you just beat the bad teams, right? Say you just beat the Jets and the Giants, you're still sitting at 8-5 at the bye with the Bills, Ravens, Jets, and Dolphins in front of you. Even if you only beat the Jets and the Dolphins, there's your 10, right?
Oh.
So even on the low end, we figured they can get 10. I would say on the high end, they might be able to get 12. Where are the Ravens at on December 21st? I know you got to go there, but if there's no Lamar or they've kind of packed it in, then, that might be another place to be able to stay. So I would say the peak is probably 12. 12-5 is probably the max. At worst, I think they land 10-7. So, they're probably, 11-6 along the way here.
Yeah, I agree. So we started doing a pick segment at the end of our show a couple weeks back, right? We give you three NFL bets against the spread. We give you a gold pick, a silver pick, a bronze pick. We like the bronze the least of our three, but it's still a best bet for us, right? So I believe, Gresh, we are both 4-2 through 2 weeks.
Yes, that is correct.
So if you've been tailing, you've been making some money. It is always interesting, Gresh, when we do this show, whether it's Tuesday, I know today is Wednesday, but my opinions change so much on this league as the weeks go along. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't always agree with my action from Wednesday by the time we get to Saturday or Sunday. So why don't you get us going with your bronze medal selection?
My bronze medal selection is finally me leaning into a team that I've been kind of resisting for a while, and that would be the Indianapolis Colts. The Steelers are out there trying to make trades to improve their defense because it ain't that good. Colts are hot. Steelers are just ass against the run. Jonathan Taylor, for my money, is the MVP of the league right now. Look at his numbers. Give me the Colts -3 in Yinzerville.
Absolutely love that, and I will give you a little more on that perhaps later in this picks segment. My bronze selection this week, Gresh. I'm taking the Bills. +2.5 home to the Kansas City Chiefs. I know the Chiefs are rolling, Gresh. They won their last 3 home games over the last 3 weeks, beat Detroit, Las Vegas, and Washington. They put up 89 points in 3 weeks. Their opponents only put up 24 points. But over the last 5 years, right, who wins the regular season matchups? Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Who wins the postseason matchups? Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Past 5 years, regular season, Josh Allen 4-0 against Mahomes. A couple of those games were in Kansas City. Kansas City, after 3 games at home, coming on the road. I'm just sort of leaning Bills here. I think Kansas City will win the game that matters in January. This is my third best selection. I think it's a pretty tough board to look at and place 3. I didn't have 3 really strong bets, so this is the weakest of the 3, but I'm just sort of riding the trend that is the Bills in the regular season. I think they had a bye a week before, nice win at Carolina last week. I think the Bills get it done at home.
There are very few trends that are anti-Kansas City. Now, you could say it's pro-Buffalo, but you understand what I'm saying on that, Jay, because, you're putting picks together every week. There are very few times where there's so much statistical evidence of one team against Kansas City that you're right. You got to ride it right now until it goes kaput. My silver play is the Raiders +3.5 against Jacksonville. Jacksonville going on the road, right? How do you handle prosperity? Spending a night in Las Vegas. I'm sure they're not going to tell those guys that they can't go out if they want to, and we'll see, they're professional enough to handle their business. But Raiders +3, no likey. Raiders +3.5, you give me the hook, very much like it against Jacksonville. I don't think Vegas wins this game, but I sure as hell think they can keep it close and make it tough on a Jaguars team that is still trying to figure out how to make all the pieces fit. Brian Thomas Jr. has not exactly gone off yet this year.
I really like that that's your pick. I lean that direction. I saw that game, and yeah, the 3.5 does move it for me. But Jacksonville, right, when they were 4-1 and they beat San Francisco on the road and then came home and beat Kansas City at home and got to 4-1, the following week, Seattle showed them what was up when they came in and stomped. I just don't think Jacksonville's as good. I think Liam Cohen is doing a lot of good things, but I think it's a little bit haphazard in a way. I don't feel as though they are a sort of unit as a team. I just
agree.
Disconnect, and I do not like Trevor Lawrence's game.
Here's what I think you're trying to say, Jay. Right now, they feel like a collection of talent.
Exactly.
Not a complete unit just yet.
Exactly.
Sorry to jump in.
No, that's a much better way to make that point. And don't you, Trevor Lawrence doesn't pass the eye test for me. How many times are you going to lack putting touch on the football and throw a fastball that your receiver can't catch? I don't like his leadership. I think he's wildly inconsistent. And I think it's going to be very interesting navigation for that organization, because I don't think Trevor Lawrence, that long lettuce, is holding up a trophy ever. I just don't.
Well, and I also wonder that if the Jags the Jags find a way to make the playoffs and make the Cons happy, does Liam Cohen start to get more power down there and start to kind of quietly look for his own quarterback, not turn it into a big deal, but look for his own guy?
Yep.
Jay, I know you're up. You're a silver pick. I stooged it.
No, you're good. So you see it. I match you there, Gresh. Colts -3 at Pittsburgh. And I love when we're on the same side. It'll be interesting to see what happens in this game. I really am feeling for Aaron Rodgers. You know, I had so many people telling me they thought this Pittsburgh Steelers defense was going to be better this year than they were last year. Anything but. It's been just laughable. And while TJ Watt makes a lot of plays, he's 70% of the time, I feel like he's immediately out of the play. And so it'll be interesting to see maybe Kyle Dart can help. But that Colts team, right? It's like I'm done looking away from this team. 6-2 against the spread, 4-1 against the spread as a favorite.
I'm with you.
At this point, the Colts have put me in a position to where I see that number. I'm forced to play on what is now the best team in football, maybe, for my money.
Yeah, we have to get rid of and I'm with you. We have to get rid of our preconceived notions about the Colts and just embrace kind of who they are right now. My gold medal play is a bounce back for the 49ers. They did not play well against Houston. They are in New York against the Giants, who, listen, Jackson Dart's doing great, but Cam Scatterboo was becoming the heartbeat of that football team, and he unfortunately gets hurt a couple of weeks ago. So now they're really trying to restart the engine. I think the 49ers defensively, there'll be enough institutional knowledge from old dopey Robert Saleh, the 49ers defensive coordinator. And I just think this screams bounce back for the 49ers.
Absolutely love it. It was my last game out, and frankly, I should have put it in there. I couldn't agree more. Great handicap. You know, I'm forced to play with my gold medal selection, the Patriots -5.5, Gresh. And what I'll tell you is I got very excited when you picked the Patriots, I think, for your gold medal pick a couple weeks ago. And I talked before about they have this margin for error where Myles Garrett can have the game of his life. And I understand it's a one-man team, and the Patriots can still blow teams out. Atlanta has a lot of defensive abilities, right? I think maybe top pass defense in all football, second best defense. But this Patriots team, to me, is a juggernaut. Like, they're blowing everybody out, and I believe that they can overcome a lot of different things during a game and still emerge victorious. Yes, Atlanta, you described them as Jekyll and Hyde, most certainly. It would not surprise me at all if this is a step back game and the Patriots sort of give one back. Maybe the Falcons bounce back. When we did a breakdown going with wins and losses a couple weeks back, we sort of gave the Patriots a loss in this spot. Now, maybe Kirk Cousins wants to be traded. Penix may not be healthy. I just think Atlanta has a lot in flux and the Patriots don't. So I'm happy to lay the 5.5. I'm going to be surprised at this point if the Patriots don't win by 10 points.
Yeah, I'm not going to be as bold as that. I think if they win, it ends up being close just because that's the way the Falcons are. And, again, to be real, this is a step up in opponent, no question. You know, the last couple of weeks, the Patriots did what we wanted them to do. Show that they're no longer in the bottom of the league. And Lord knows they're not. They're not what they've been the last 2 years. And they've shown it by smacking these bad teams around. Now, this Atlanta team, I would say, Jay, at the beginning of the year, we probably thought they might have been even with New England just in terms of where they were. Record-wise, New England is here, and Atlanta is still kind of here, but they can play up or down, and that's the hard part of figuring out which Falcons team is going to show. But if the Patriots are consistent and they've done what they've been doing, they should be able to deal with whatever wave Atlanta is going to throw at them.
Yeah, great stuff. I couldn't agree with you more. And I will say about Atlanta, Bijan Robinson to me is the best player in the whole league. So while I'm bullish on the Patriots, it's not going to surprise me if he goes off and they play some defense and rattle Drake a little bit. We'll see.
And for those of you who do follow NASCAR, championship weekend is this weekend in Phoenix. Go Denny Hamlin to win the championship. That's my
Denny Hamlin
official pick. By the way, I'm on the Infinity Sports Network tonight from 6 to 10 Eastern. That'll be Wednesday night. And then Saturday morning on Sirius, 8 a.m. to noon. And then I got a free weekend, and we normally would have been going to the game. However, It's NASCAR Championship weekend. Betty ain't moving, so
I love it.
I'll be watching it from home and knocking out my TV. And I know that you got Dirty Boxing 4 in Nashville tomorrow night, October 30th. For those who need a date, follow the Last Man Standing show on YouTube and other platforms. Have you seen? You've seen the space in the arena and everything?
No, and what's interesting, we're not getting in there till tomorrow morning. There's a concert, I think, there tonight. So, but I can't wait to get in there. It's like a brand new building, so we'll see. It should be electric. They know what they're doing here at DBX. I'm excited.
I dig it. So everybody watch DBX tomorrow night. Catch me on the radio tonight. For Jay, I'm Gresh. We'll see you next week here on Gas.